Hi guys, welcome to day 2. Today is Friday, March 20th, and I'm going to go over what you should be doing today in the packet. I'm going to start with reading. So today you have a passage called Food for Change, a passage called Malala the Brave, and a passage called More Than a Toy. They're 3 really short articles, so it's front and back. You're going to read all 3 of these. They're informational text again, and then you have just one question to answer today. It says in Article 1, Food for Change, why do you think Chandra Star decided to start her Million Penny Project? And you're going to support your answer with evidence from the text. So you need to go back to that text, quote, underline, whatever you need to do to find text evidence to support your answer. Please make sure you are writing incomplete sentences that start with capital letters and end with punctuation. If you don't know how to spell something and you do have a computer or dictionary, you should be using it. If you don't, just try your best. And if it's in the article, then you should spell it correctly. So that's it for reading for today. All right, so moving on to writing. Yesterday, you read this article called The Mysterious Photograph, and all you had to do was read it and take some notes. So I did that too. I read through. On the front page, I didn't find too much. I just underlined one part at the bottom, and then on the back, I found a lot more. I did some underlining, and I starred some things, and I put some notes. The prompt that you're answering was question number 3, so I'm going to read it again for you. So one at the bottom that's circled. It says, explain how the locations, which is the old school building, the house, and the school library, how those locations in the story make people think about events in the past. And you need to use 3 or more examples of evidence from the text. So the way I'm going to do mine is I'm going to use the 3 locations they gave us in the parentheses, these 3, the house, the library, and the old school building. And so I looked for those in the text, and when they got to those locations and started thinking about things in the past, like memories or things that had happened to them or someone they knew, I underlined them and I kind of wrote a little note to myself. So like, for example, when Mr. Nelson starts talking about his memories at the old house, like when he was making cookies and swinging on the tire swing and catching fireflies, I underlined those and I put a little star and I said, these are memories at the house. So when I write my paragraph about the house, I can use this as a resource. So that is what you were supposed to do yesterday. Now today, day 2 says all you have to do is the graphic organizer. That is the one that looks like this. So this is the text evidence detective sheet that we have used since the first week of school. At the top, you put down your claim. You get your claim right from your prompt. Please use the prompt. You don't even have to come up with anything new. Use the prompt. So since the prompt says, explain how the locations in the story make people think about events in the past, I'm going to use that sentence to form a claim. I'm even going to tell you my claim. You may use this too if you'd like. My claim is that the locations in the story make people think about events in the past. It's easy as that. And so that goes right up here at the top. Then you decide 3 pieces of evidence that you're going to use. These top boxes, the evidence boxes, are where you quote from the text. You can use a sentence starter like, according to the text, blah, 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 or the author states, blah, blah, blah. You can pick some of these sentence starters. Then underneath here, you explain why each of these evidence that you picked, why they matter. So like, this evidence is important because, or this matters because, this shows us that, and then you explain. The more work you do here, the easier it is for you to write your body paragraphs, which we all know that by now. The way I separated mine is this section was dedicated to the old school, this one was dedicated to the library, and this one is dedicated to the house. So hold that up for y'all to see a little better. So that's how you should organize that. This is all you're doing today. You are not drafting until tomorrow. Well, that would be Monday. So this is it for today. You just need to make sure you do a good job with this. If you need more room, you can go onto the back. If you'd rather draw it on a piece of notebook paper, that's fine too. That's it for writing for today. Math, you're still using these same sheets. It continues on to this one, but it's just these 2 for days 1 through 5. So if you did like 4 problems yesterday, I would do 4 more today, however you want to do it. If you're picking the ones that you know how to do first and you're going to go back and do the hard ones later, you can do that. It's up to you. Make sure you're showing your work. If you don't have enough room on here or on the back, then you can use this space or this space for a piece of notebook paper. You have to try every problem though. If you're really getting confused, you need to look at the notes that we included. I showed you these yesterday, but please know they're back and front and they go over everything we've done this year. And then finally, for social studies, you are continuing your fill-in notes from yesterday. Yesterday, you just had to do this first chunk right here that said day 1. Today, you're doing day 2, which is this bottom half and a little bit of the top of the next page. So yesterday, you did the part that says day 1. You learned a little bit more about the Great Depression. We talked about this when we finished up the Roaring 20s. We were learning about how people were spending so much money, and it was money they didn't actually have. And so that created the stock market crash, and we figured out people started losing their jobs. It started, like this slide, this started the domino effect. People were losing their jobs because factories were losing money. And then if people don't have money, they can't buy from factories and businesses. And then those businesses and factories don't have money to pay their employees. So it just was a domino effect. Something would happen, it would lead to the next event and the next event. So that created the Great Depression, and we looked at this newspaper article back in our last unit. And then we see a graph here of the stock market crash, what happened on Black Tuesday when it crashed. And then it was a chain reaction, kind of like I just said with that domino effect. People started losing, well, first their wages were cut, so they were getting paid less, and then eventually they would lose their job. Prices were decreasing. Companies were lowering prices to try and get people to pay for more things, but it wasn't really working. So then today you're going to be learning about the back of that sheet. So that was day 1. This is day 2, and this is what you're going to fill in your notes. It goes over the downward spiral, so things are just getting worse and worse and worse. You're going to see some primary sources of what people were doing. They were putting up signs. They really wanted their jobs. And then this slide here talks about the Great Migration. We were talking about how African Americans were moving from the South to the North in big groups during this time period. They were looking for new jobs. They didn't want to work on a farm anymore like they had been doing in the South. But then when they got to the North, they realized it was really hard to get a job, especially during the Great Depression. And then you're going to learn about Hoovervilles. And so Hoovervilles are where homeless people started making like makeshift homes. They weren't real homes. They would just make it out of scraps that they could find, whether it was cardboard, newspapers, any extra wood they could get. And they would make these basically like new communities called Hoovervilles. And they called them Hoovervilles because of President Herbert Hoover. The Hoovervilles were really called, they're shanty towns, and they're just made out of whatever anybody could find. And then that leads into the Dust Bowl. So the Dust Bowl, excuse me, the Dust Bowl was also during the Great Depression. And this is a time we're in the middle of America, over the Great Plains area that we've talked about before. That's when everybody that was living in that area, it got really dry. They're having a drought, and dust started blowing everywhere. And there's these crazy pictures. You can see some here, and you'll look at more on day 3. And when we get back to school, I can show you some really cool pictures of that. But it really affected anybody who's working in agriculture at the time. So all you're doing today is day 2, which is this bottom half and the top half here. So that is it for day 2. If you have any questions, please let me know. The comments aren't going to be working on the YouTube, but you can just send me an email or have your parents send me an email, and that would be great. But I hope you guys are having a safe, happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you Monday. Bye.